Special right triangles. It's our section 5.3. Now, they're special because of a couple of things. One thing that makes them special is that they come from some special shapes. We make them because of special shapes. Another reason they're special is because you only need one side and you can find all three sides. You know how with Pythagorean theorem you had to have two sides and then a squared b squared equals c squared. You needed two out of the three. Well, with the special ones you only need one. So they're special in a couple of different respects. First one we're going to talk about is the 30, 60, 90s. Now this is a right triangle because it's 90-degree angle. These two add up to 90 also. So 90 plus 90 is my 180 that all triangles add up to. To make a special 30, 60, 90 triangle, you just need to take half of an equilateral triangle. So you're going to take an equilateral triangle and you're going to cut it in half. That will give you a 30, 60, 90. Think of an equilateral triangle. While you're writing that down, think of three equal sides. If you've got three equal sides, then what does that tell me about the three angles? They're the same and they have to equal how much? 180 divided by 3 is 60 degrees each. So all three are 60. If I cut one of them in half, like this one right up here at the very top, that was a 60-degree angle. I cut it in half, it became two 30s. So I got my 30, and I had my 60, and I got my 90. So taking an equilateral triangle and cutting it exactly down the middle gave you two 30, 60, 90 triangles. Now, does anybody know what we call this line? It is an angle bisector, but there's a name that we use because of this box right here. It is perpendicular and it is a bisector, but there is a special name we give it. Starts with an A. Altitude is right. It's the height. It tells us from the bottom to the very tippy top of the triangle how high it is. So when you put an altitude in this equilateral triangle, you make two 30, 60, 90s. Here's your two formulas. This is why you only need one piece, because we have two formulas that you can use. Okay, the hypotenuse is twice as long as the short leg. Twice as long as the short leg. Or you could put the actual formula, H equals short leg times 2. Short leg times 2. Short leg times 2. Now, if you look at the bottom side, look at this big triangle we have here. You see I have all three 8s, right? You see this 8 here on the bottom? What happened when we brought this down to this point right here? What did happen here?
Cut it in half.
Cut them in half. And what does it? Both of those boxes have to be?
4.
4s. Okay, now I want you to look at those. And then I want you to just isolate one of the triangles. Just this triangle right here, this 30, 60, 90. Here's my shorter leg. Now, not only does it look shorter, but there's a mathematical reason that it's shorter. Remember what we learned before about the sides of a triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's across from the smallest.
Exactly. It's across from the smallest angle. It has to be the shortest side. Across from the longest angle, it has to be the longest side. So my short leg, now notice it's 4. And what does my formula say? Short leg times 2 equals hypotenuse. What if I took the 4 and times it by 2? I get the hypotenuse. Isn't that the hypotenuse? So the formula does work in this equilateral triangle. You take this short leg, you double it, you get your hypotenuse. What if I knew the hypotenuse and I wanted to find the short leg? Just divide it by 2, right? This is always a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you want to make a little side note or something, it's got to be a 2-to-1 ratio from the hypotenuse to the short leg. Always. Has to be a 2-to-1 ratio. Because it cut the one in half. That's why it's always going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. This altitude cut this piece in half. So you got a half and a whole. That half and a whole is always a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's the one formula. Now, what about the middle altitude, the longer leg. Here's our formula for long leg. It's the short leg times radical 3. The short leg times radical 3. And I abbreviated LL for long leg, SL for short leg, and then radical 3. So if we know the short leg, we can multiply it by radical 3, and that'll give us the long leg. Okay, so look at the two formulas that you have on your paper. What do you see in common? Which is? So guess which one we would love to have the most? Short leg, because then we can find both of them really quickly. So if I have hypotenuse, which one do I need to find first? Short leg. If I've got long leg, which one do I need to find next? Short leg. Okay, your short leg is your main one. You've got to get that short leg. Because if you know this short leg, you can double it, you got your hypotenuse. You can times it by radical 3 and you'll get your long leg. So the short leg is the key. You need to get that short leg. So this right here, this box is just simply 4 radical 3. You take the short leg, 4, and you multiply by radical 3 to make it longer. It is the longer leg, so we got to have a way to make it longer. To make it bigger, we're going to multiply. So multiply it by radical 3. Now, how am I going to remember radical 3? Not radical 2 or radical 6 or radical 5. There's 3 sides. 30, 60, 90. There's also 3 angles. 3 different sides, 3 different angles. Means you're going to use a radical 3 for that. So that, hopefully that'll get in your mind that I've got 3 different angles, so I'm going to use a radical 3, not a radical 2. Okay, let's look at the 2 examples. Let's apply what we just learned. What's the 18 there on the bottom? It is the hypotenuse. Okay, let me move this up. Okay, this X is representing which leg? Okay, because it's across from the 30, right? So that's a short leg, and this angle has to be a 60, because the other one's 30, 30, 60, 90. The Y then has to be my longer leg. So which leg should I go after first? Always go after the short leg if you don't have it. So if I've got 18 as my hypotenuse, and I know my hypotenuse and short leg are a 2-to-1 ratio, then what does my X have to equal? 9. Got to be 9, because it's got to be a 2-to-1 ratio there. And the short leg is smaller, so you're dividing to get to the smaller number. Now the short leg, you're going to do what to get it to equal the long leg? Just multiply it by radical 3. That's what the formula says. Once you've got the short leg, just multiply it by radical 3, you get the long leg. So 9 radical 3. So that once you start to see the formulas work a little bit, it gets easy to remember them. And we use them a lot, so it will be easy to remember. What happened? Shoes? I don't know whose those are. Somebody left them in here. You know whose they are? They're, I think it's 4th period. Jude or somebody. I don't know. Who? I don't have Dion. Nope. No, but I'm sure they'll be back for them. They'll be back. All right, let's look at S and R and 5. What is each side? Scott, yes, those might be Scots. Yes, they're probably Scots. 5 is what? Longer leg, yes. And the R is hypotenuse. The S is short leg. Okay, this one's a little tricky. Not going to lie to you. This one is a little bit tricky because of the fact that they gave us the long leg. When they give you the long leg, that's the hardest one. So because this is the piece they gave you, we have to try to get short leg first because that's the one that's invoked. So they gave me the long leg, which is 5. Long leg 5 equals the short leg times radical 3. Now the short leg, they're going to use as S right there. S. So how do I get S by itself? You got to divide by radical 3, which is not always easy, but Monday, we did our notes on Monday, we know how to divide by radicals now, right? So we divide by radical 3, Can't have it on the bottom, right? So we multiply by radical 3 over radical 3. And so what am I going to end up with? S equals 5 radical 3 over 3. That's going to be your S. Okay, that's a little bit challenging because you've got to divide instead of multiply. Think about it this way. This is the biggest side, 5. It's the longest leg. To make it smaller, you have to divide. What we divide by is the radical 3 on both sides. Make it smaller to get your short leg. Now that we have the short leg, 5 radical 3 over 3, how do I get my hypotenuse?
Multiply it by 2.
It's a 2 to 1 ratio, right? Short leg to hypotenuse. So I'm going to multiply this by 2. Can I put a 1 under it?
Yeah.
Multiply straight across. What do you get? 10 radical 3 over 3. So there's your hypotenuse. There's your R. So R is this one, S is that one. Now, you probably wouldn't leave it like that in real life. You'd probably get it a decimal. You'd probably multiply these two together, divide by 3, and get an actual decimal amount if you're doing something, doing a project or something. You want to make sure you get a decimal out of that. Okay, but right now we're just going to leave those as radicals. So that's how 30, 60, 90s work. That's one of them. The next special one is a 45, 45, 90. And to get that one, that's the isosceles right triangle. Right? And we talked a little bit about that, I think, Tuesday. That's half of a square. So the other one was half of an equilateral triangle. This one is half of a square. So look at my square that I drew here. And I did a diagonal. That's how I get half. I don't go half this way. That's not going to make a triangle. Or that way. It's got to be the diagonal. That's going to give me it bisected my 90-degree angles. It cut them both in half. So I made a 45, and a 90. So we have an isosceles right triangle. Now what would go in this blank? Both blank in a 45, 45, 90 special right triangle are the same.
Both legs.
Okay, there's 3 angles, so it can't be both angles. But what would it be? Legs. Both legs are the same, right? The two sides are called legs, and the third side's the hypotenuse. The 2 legs are the same. They have to be the same. So guess what these 2 are going to be down here? They're both 7s. It's a square, right? They're all 7s. So down here you've got a 7. I know I had one somewhere. There it is. And then a 7. Okay, so the formula for a 45, 45, 90, there's only one formula. Because you've only got 45s and 90s. You don't have 30, 60, 90. You just got 45s and 90s. So there's one formula. You got legs, you got hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is the leg times radical 2. The hypotenuse is the leg times radical 2. We actually did one of those with the Pythagorean theorem. I don't know if you remember, but I had x, and a. You got to do x squared, or a squared plus a squared equals c squared or something. And you have something for me.
No, I just have both. Yeah.
Why are you?
Because I was going to do my
It's not the good last game today?
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know if you remember, but in our notes from Tuesday, we had the A, and the C, and we did a squared plus a squared equals c squared. And when we did our answer, we got a times radical 2. Well, in this case, it's whatever the leg is times radical 2. So in my triangle here, what are my legs? 7. So what's my hypotenuse? 7 radical 2 is your hypotenuse. You just get a 7 and then a radical 2. Now let's see if we can fill in the right pieces there at the bottom. Fill in the right piece. Where would this 3 go? So I could put it here? What about over here?
No.
Down here? Okay. What about this 3 radical 2? Hypotenuse. And then this 3 would have to go here. Yep. Okay, here is the other one that's a little bit of a challenge because this time they're giving you the hypotenuse, which is the biggest side. So you need to divide to make it smaller, right? What are we going to divide by? The radical 2. Now, remember how we know it's radical 3? When there was 3 angles, 30, 60, 90, or 3 sides, short leg, long leg, and hypotenuse? How can we remember radical 2?
2 equal sides.
There's 2 equal sides. You can do that. You could say there's 2 kinds of angles. There's 45s and there's 90s. So however you want to do it, remember that the isosceles right triangle has radical 2. The 30, 60, 90 has radical 3. So our hypotenuse equals the leg times radical 2. We know the hypotenuse is 8. We want to find the leg. So Ricardo told me to do what? Divide by the radical 2, right? So we're dividing by radical 2 on both sides. Those cancel out. So now I have a leg. The leg equals 8 divided by radical 2. We can't leave it like that, right? Multiply by the radical 2. You're going to get 8 radical 2 on top. You're going to get 2 on the bottom. You're going to reduce that. So divide it by 2. You're going to get a 4 and 1. So 4 radical 2 is your leg. Now you can do all that work every single time if you want to. If you don't trust yourself to remember the shortcuts, then just do that every time. Make sure you have it right. But if you know and you're sure of your shortcuts, look what our hypotenuse was. 8. Look what our leg came out to be. 4 radical 2. How can I get from 8 to 4 radical 2 in a shortcut? Cut it in half and put a radical 2 next to it. Boom, it's right there.
Wow.
So you don't have to do all of this if you're confident that you would know that shortcut. You would just say cut in half and then times it by radical 2. If you want to go from hypotenuse to leg, cut it in half and times it by radical 2. What if I want to go from leg to hypotenuse? You just times it by radical 2. You're done. If you want to go from hypotenuse back to leg, you got to cut it in half and put a radical 2 next to it. Okay, so that's a little bit challenging, but you always have the formula. You can always plug in the pieces and solve if you're not sure. If you know for sure that, oh, I know 8, so I'm going to get 4 radical 2, then use it. But if you're not sure, just put the formula down, plug in the piece they gave us, solve for the other piece, so you get your answer. Formulas are always there for you in case you need them. All right, moving on to a few examples. Yes. Was it? Oh, she has. Go ahead. Go ahead. So that is the formula for the 45, 45, 90. Yep. 30, 60, 90. There was 2 of them. There were these 2 formulas. All right, let's look at a couple of them. Now, I want you to try this on your own here first. I want you to take these 4 little triangles. 2 of them are 30, 60, 90s, and 2 of them are 45, 45, 90s. I want you to see what the correct order would be. Okay, here's what I mean. You're going to find all 4 answers, and then you're going to put them in order from greatest to least. So would it be A, B, C, D? Is A the biggest, then B the second biggest, C the third biggest, and D the fourth biggest? Or is it in a different order? Maybe C is the biggest, or B is the biggest, and then it goes A, and then it goes D, and then it goes whatever. So tell me what is the correct order. I have some candy on point.
Wait, what do you mean by the greatest? Like the commercial?
Solve all x's and tell me which x is the biggest.
Oh.
And the order. Which order would it be? Greatest to smallest. Greatest to smallest. You want to sit right here? See it a little bit? I can't pull it up that much because the A's already at the top. You got an order that you think is right, let me know. What do you got?
ADPC.
A, D, B, C. Keep going because we don't know. I want a few answers. If you agree, then you agree. If you don't agree, then something else. CABD? Okay, now make sure you put your 4 answers next to each X. So you have them. Anybody else have the 4? No? Just thinking of it. Ricardo has something? BDAC. Ricardo's got something. So he's got as A is biggest, then B is second, then C is third, and D is a little smaller. C, D, B, A. C, D, B, A. A, B, D, C. Okay, so that's still different. Yeah, give me another 30 seconds if you can. If you want to try it, if you have the same one, don't give it to me, but if you got something different, let me know. Yeah, I can tell you right now that the right answer is not up there. What do you got, Angelina? D, B, D, A? Okay, D, B, D, A. D, B, D, A.
That's
No,
what I thought.
not right.
All right.
Not right. Amanda, what did you come up with? No. Where did you put one up there?
No, I didn't.
You put the first one.
That was Chris.
Andy, what do you got?
Uh,
Oh, you're just guessing now.
no, man.
Yes, you are. You are guessing. What numbers did you get?
No.
She's the one doing. Robert, what do you got? No. C-bad. C-bad.
Yeah, that's all the first thing.
C-bad. C-B-A-D. Okay, let's look at it.
I knew C was first.
Okay, so what does X have to be on this first one? Remember, 2-to-1 ratio. So it's got to be 8. So next to that X, you should have an 8 there. It's got to be half. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. It's got to be half. Okay, now what would this X have to be? 6 times radical 2. Because you take your leg and you times it by radical 2 according to our formula. It's leg times radical 2. That's a 45, 45, 90. So you have to use the radical 2, not the radical 3. Now, if you made that a decimal, which you should have done, you would get 8.5. That decimal would be 8.5. Now, what does X have to be on this letter C right here? It's the short leg times radical 3 is your long leg. So it's got to be 5 radical 3. So 5 radical 3 gives you the long leg. If you multiplied that together in your calculator, you found radical 3, you multiplied it by 5, you would get 8.66, which rounds to 8.7. So C is the largest so far. Then B, then A. Now the last one is our 45, 45, 90, where they gave us the hypotenuse. Do you remember the little shortcut? When it was 8, legs were 4 radical 2. So this time it's 10. So they're 5 radical 2. So this is going to be a 5 times a radical 2. 5 times radical 2. Now, if you multiplied that together, if you took the radical 2 and then times it by 5, you get 7.07, which rounds to 7.1. So you can see that D was your smallest. C, B, A, D. C bad. All right, let's look for a couple of variables here. D and C. What do we know about D and C here? They got to be the same. It's a square. You've got a 45, 45, 90. So how can I go from my middle number, which is an 8, and how can I find both C and D? You're going to divide it by radical 2. What was the shortcut?
Cut it in half.
Cut it in half and put a radical 2 next to it. So 4 radical 2 is what you're going to get for both of those. So 4 radical 2, and then you're going to put the same thing next to the d. They're both the same because it's a square. You got a 45, 45, 90. 2 of those together makes a square. All 4 sides would be 4 radical 2. You could get a decimal if you needed to. Just take radical 2 and times it by 4. Here's a rectangle that was cut down the middle here with our diagonal, and it made a 30-degree angle. So what would this top angle have to be? 60 and then 90. 8 is which side out of the 3? 8 is the long leg. So yeah, we should probably put LL down here for long leg. Okay, so I need to find, I erased it up there, my formula. I've got the long leg formula. Long leg formula is going to be the short leg times radical 3. So they gave me the long leg of 8. I need my short leg, so what am I going to do to get my short leg? Divide by the radical 3 to get short leg by itself. So the short leg is going to be, let's get rid of the radical from the bottom, you're going to get 8 radical 3 on top, you're going to get 3 on the bottom. So your short leg is 8 radical 3 over 3. 8 radical 3 over 3 is your short leg. Okay, so that would be for this one right over here, the short leg. It'd be 8 radical 3 on top, and you'd have a 3 on the bottom. Now, what's the ratio from the short leg to the hypotenuse? Short leg to hypotenuse. It's got to be a what ratio? 2 to 1 ratio. So what do I get if I multiply 8 radical 3 over 3 by 2? You're right, 16 radical 3 over 3. Yeah, you get the hypotenuse. Thanks, Karen. Appreciate that. That would be the h. That'd be like right down inside of here. So that would be the 8 radical 3 over 3, but it's not going to be 8 anymore, is it? Sorry. We multiplied it by 2 and we got 16. 16 radical 3 over 3. Sixteen radical 3 over 3, that would be our h. We just take this and double it. You double it, you get 16 radical 3 over 3. Yes. Yes. I don't know. Just stretch. Okay. All right, find the area. Area of this parallelogram. Who knows the area formula?
Oh, wait, area?
Area formula. What do you got?
Base times height. No, 1/2 base times height.
If you're finding a triangle, you would have it right. We want a parallelogram. Length times width times base times height. That's a lot of stuff. How about just a short little BH?
Yeah.
It's just base times height. Yeah, you had it. It's just base times height. It's a parallelogram. So which one's my base?
5.
Correct. Now you got to tell me why, though. That's the important thing. How do you know 5's the base?
Because
And it's not because it's on the bottom. It's not because it's biggest.
I know. Yeah.
Because what? Because why? Why is 5 the base? It's perpendicular. It has the box. Wherever the box is where you're going to have a base and a height. Okay, so you see the box? You got a base, you got a height. That's your base and height. So this right here would be my h. Okay, this is my height. Has to be. You've got to have a base and a height where the box is. This 4 is not the height. There's no right angle there. The height is always straight up. So you can't say that that's a height. So let's see what we would get. If we multiply the base is 5. What's my height, though? I don't know the height. Do I? Can I figure it out? If this is 60, then this is 90, then this angle has to be, so I got a 30, 60, 90. I have my hypotenuse. Could I find my short leg? What would my short leg be? It's got to be 2. Because it's the 2-to-1 ratio again, right? 4 and 2, 2-to-1 ratio. So what would my height then be? 2 times radical 3 is your height. Okay, so what we would do then is we would take the 5, the base, times it by the height, 2 radical 3. Then you would multiply the 5 and the 2 because they're both outside the square roots, and you get 10 radical 3. If you multiplied that together, your area would be 17.3, I think, right? And that'd be square meters. Meters squared. So you'd have a square meters there. Sorry, I know I'm in your way. There's just a couple of quick ones left. Pretty quick. There's a couple of multiple choice ones that are just want you to look at. And then there's a couple of ones that we just fill in. Okay, here's a multiple choice. Okay, it says, which statement below is true about this diagram? Okay, there's an x in here. X degrees. It's an angle. Is this angle less than 45? Is it more than 45? Is it greater than 45 or equal to 45? Is it greater? Is it less than or equal? Is it not enough information? Christian knows. He's the one that helped me on this earlier. Chris. Yeah, you helped me earlier on one like this. You gotta think back to what you helped me on.
Your name's Chris.
I said Chris.
It's Christian.
No, I said Chris.
I heard Christian.
I heard Chris.
Maybe I said something else to Chris, but I know it's Chris. Not Christian, no, you don't. Not an expert. I didn't call you Christian, I said Chris. He's in my head, I said Chris.
Okay. It's the thought that counts. Oh.
Okay, so what do you think? Was it? Why? Because you're right.
What?
He's right, it is C. But I would like him to tell me why.
Is it the 30th order?
Okay, so if these were both 20s, then what would X have to be?
45.
It'd have to both be it'd have to be a 45-degree angle. If these were both 21s, that would have to be a 45-degree angle. But this one is bigger than this one.
So it has to be 30.
So this angle has to be bigger than this angle right here, right?
Yep.
So it's got to be bigger than 45. It's got to be more than the halfway point. So it's got to be greater than 45. It's got to be C. You might want to write yourself a little note that bigger side must be across from the bigger angle. That's why it's greater than 45. So just side note yourself. Find the perimeter. Let me move it up so we can get the perimeter. The bigger side is going to be across from a bigger angle, so it's got to be bigger than 45. Because if they were both the same, it would equal 45. Since one is bigger, it's got to be greater than 45. 45 would be like our halfway point. Okay, in this triangle, what did they give us? They gave us a 30, 60, 90. So I know that's a 60 right there. And the side they gave me is 12. What side is that? So I should be able to find one other side pretty fast.
Oh, short leg.
2-to-1 ratio. Short leg is 6. Okay, so on the right side there it's a 6. And then the bottom leg should be pretty easy now that we know the short leg. Times it by radical 3. Okay, this right here, when you multiply it together, you're going to get 10.39. Just giving you that. Now you find the perimeter. That's what it's asking for. Find the perimeter. Perimeter is all 3 together, yes. All 3 sides make the perimeter. So this would be a 6.
I know.
28.4.
I know. Will it get it kind of fast?
6 radical 3, right? And so what did we get? 28.4 is correct. It is A. This is 10.4 down here. And so when you add those together, 10.4 plus 18, because those two add up to 18, you get the 28.4. Whoops, where'd that come from? All right, last one. There's just a few to fill in. They're pretty quick ones. Let's see. There's the first triangle. Okay, it's a 45, 45, 90. If A equals 9, then what does B have to equal? 9, good, because A and B are always the same. It's a 45, 45, right? It's isosceles. They got to be equal. To be isosceles, they got to be the same. So that's 9. So then guess what C has to be? 9 radical 2. You just take the leg and times it by radical 2. So you're just going to get a 9 radical 2 for that one. Okay, now, you should look at it. I know that some of you just want to write it in to have it done. But you should really look at the triangle. You should notice that A and B are going to always be the same in this triangle because both angles are the same. So if one was 9, the other was 9. If this one's a 5, guess what the next one's got to be? 5, because A and B have to equal each other. Okay, so there's a 5. Now, if these are both 5s, guess what the C has to be? It's whatever the leg is, and then you times it by radical 2 to make it bigger for the hypotenuse. So it's going to be 5 radical 2. Now, where it gets trickier is when they give you the C, and you got to go backwards to get this A and the B. That means you got to divide. So if C is 2 radical 2, guess what these would have both been in order to make this become a 2 radical 2? They were both 2's. If this one was a 2 and this one was a 2, then the hypotenuse would be the leg times radical 2. It would be 2 radical 2. How could I have done it using my formula? I could have taken 2 radical 2 and divided it by radical 2 and then crossed them out and got the 2, right? So they both have to be 2's. The last one is the trickier one. If C is 7, how do I get A and B? You got to divide it by radical 2. Was there a shortcut? Just cut it in half. 3.5 times it by radical 2. So you could put 3.5 radical 2 if you want to. You could put 7 halves radical 2 because 7 halves is the same thing as 3.5. So you could put 7 over 2 and then radical 2. Whatever way you wanted to write it, you could write it. But 3.5 radical 2, and that'd be for both of them, A and B. So I'm just going to put it in A because it's harder for me to type it, but you can put it in B as well. Because it's 3.5 radical 2, or it's 7 halves radical 2, or 7 radical 2 over 2, if you want to write it that way. A lot of different ways you could write it. Okay, if that's a decimal, then 4.9 would work. Okay, now let's look at the bottom triangle. They're all 30, 60, 90 triangles. This one is. So if M is 3, M is my short leg. If I've got the short leg, then what's my long leg? If this is 3, then I want the long leg. It's not 6. That's the hypotenuse. It's not 9. It's 3 radical 3. You take your short leg, you times it by radical 3, you get your long leg. So that's 3 radical 3. If you've got the short leg and you want to go to the hypotenuse, what's the ratio there? 2 to 1 ratio. So a 3 would become a 6. So your hypotenuse would be a 6. So your P would be a 6. If this is a 3, that's a 6. This is a 3 radical 3 down here. Let's say they gave you the hypotenuse was 8. Get me the short leg. 4. So M has to be a 4 because it's a 2 to 1 ratio. If the hypotenuse is 8, it's got to be half. 2 to 1 ratio. And then that's going to be the 4 radical 3. 3 different angles. Good. 4 radical 3. Short leg times radical 3 is always our long leg. Okay, 2 radical 3 is our long leg. What must have been our short leg then? Must have been a 2 because 2 times radical 3 would make the long leg. So the short leg M would have to be a 2. And if you double it, you'll get your hypotenuse, which is 4, yes. Okay, last one is the tricky one. I'm going to actually put this one on the picture. So what they're giving you is N is 9. Okay, so how could I go from this 9 to the short leg?
Multiply by radical.
No, that would be from the short leg to the long leg we'd multiply.
Oh, yeah.
We want to make it smaller. We got to divide by radical 3. So basically what it is, it's a 9 over a radical 3. Now we can't leave that radical down there. So we need to actually fix that radical. So 9 over radical 3. What are we going to get when we fix that? It's going to be 9 radical 3 over 3, but when you reduce to 9/3, it's going to be 3 radical 3. So you're actually going to get 3 radical 3. I don't know what that was, but that was crazy. And then how do I get my hypotenuse now? You double it, yes, you get 6 radical 3. You take your short leg, 3 radical 3, you double it, you get your hypotenuse. Alright, so you now have enough information to do tonight's school net. Use your formulas tonight. It will really help you get those numbers right. It might ask you for the nearest tenth. It might ask you for the nearest hundredth. You should have a calculator. I should put a calculator in the school net, huh? I forget to do that. But you have one in your computer, right? I mean, you can just go to the calculator in your computer. Simplifying this one, you take out a 16 and a 5. So it would be 4 radical 5. So you're looking at probably that one. It's got a 4 on the outside and a radical 5 on the inside. So you might just want to break down pieces and you can probably find the right answer, rather than do all the letters and stuff. These you got to try to combine them when you get the radicals short simplified. I'd have to do that one on paper. That's hard to do without on paper.
And the same the length and width of a rectangle?
Length and width of a rectangle. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that one.